mighty Marlon packs a punch. A miscue from Morrell. Oh, Joe! With some magic to follow. Plenty of postponements this weekend. Oxford took 3 points from Ipswich in the fog at the Kassam. Derby, Barnsley and Plymouth all recorded home wins. And as a result, Plymouth stay top. Wednesday remain second, having recorded their 5th straight League One win. Pompey are back to looking up the table rather than down. The John Mousinho era is off to a winning start, and with trips to Fleetwood and Peterborough to come this week, there's plenty to discuss as always here on 4-0 Sunday Live. Good evening and welcome back to 4-0 Sunday Live. We've had a Monday Live, we've had 2 Thursday Lives recently, and we're back in our regular slot for the next hour or so with our regular panel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along. Nice to have you with us. Aaron, Gaz, Reese, Brendan and Mike, Pepe from the Portsmouth News Desk, Jack from the Young Fan Podcast, and I'm delighted to say we have a very special guest joining us in just a moment too. Before we do that, we'll take your thoughts at home too, of course. Let's take a look back at all the events from yesterday afternoon when a new era began at Pompey. For the first time in the John Mousinho era, a very good morning, Andrew!
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Lovely sunny day, mate. Looking forward to this.
Different direction to, compared to Jacket and Cowley, where we've had people come in with promotions and success in the past. New head coach, no CV. Let's give him a chance, see what happens.
The thoughts of everyone at Portsmouth Football Club are with Anton's family and friends at this incredibly sad time, and will be wearing black armbands for the game. We're going to remember him now with a minute's applause, which will begin and end on the referee's whistle.
Bit rusty in some areas. Tunnicliffe, I'm really worried about Tunnicliffe. Dale, on the other hand, best player on the pitch.
Yeah, we need to start getting. We need a goal at Fratton Park. We've obviously had moments. We had a goal the other week against Ipswich, it's Pat's goal, but we need a goal that we create, one that we pass and move, and actually look like we're a bit cohesive.
Been coming for my little man for a little while, Joe Morrell, you little dancer.
Stepping off people and letting them play to us.
Can I hear your voice going a little bit?
We can't let it be a fluke.
Yeah.
It has to be concrete now.
That's got to be routine, isn't it? We're not getting too excited, but I'm buzzing with the win. Thank you. Are you buzzing with a win?
I'm buzzing with a win.
Thank you. It was a day to have a smile on your face, wasn't it? Very much so. Mr. Moon is joining us in just a moment. He's having iPad trouble, so he's firing up his laptop, but he'll be with us very shortly. Reese, let's kick off as we always do, mate. Welcome along. Thanks for being with us, as usual. And how nice it is to be coming out of Fratton Park with a smile for once.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. And good evening, gents, and everybody watching live with us. It was just so nice. It made such a nice change for us all to be able to discuss everything today with a win behind our belt. And the atmosphere really was really nice to see, especially in the second half when we were really going at it and bringing back memories of the old Pompey earlier in the season for us.
Good evening to the 283 people who join us across YouTube and Facebook, and a very warm welcome to Dan, who says the best thing about a Sunday night. Good evening, lads. And MC Painters just got his voice back, and David echoes my sentiment entirely. Good to see smiles on people's faces. And Mike, you're going to be wearing some Pompey stuff for the first time when I next see you, which is a sign of the times. Good evening to you.
Yeah, good evening, Tom. Good evening, lads. I hope you all enjoy yourself and all our watchers, obviously. Yes, I'm going to go back to wearing my Pompey hat, my Pompey shirt, and I've also turned the team photo back round. So, yeah, all things are looking up in this house at the moment and with me.
Brendan's had a haircut as well. How are you, mate? And looking forward to Tuesday off the back of what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely great turnaround from John to get the boys playing. You know, maybe that the sort of new head coach bounce has really come into full effect at Fratton Park. And yes, Fleetwood away. Really looking forward to that. And myself, you and Dylan are going to be going up from this team here, so it's going to be really good.
We're looking forward to it, aren't we? And there's a funny comment from Glyn who said, "You look even better in real life, gents. Fishbowl doesn't do you justice." Good to see you yesterday. And I'm going to treat you all. Here's a big old view. Look at the fish tank on that. Oh, yes. Look at that. We love a bit. Look at the size of them. Massive,
all he needs is a submarine now.
All he needs is a submarine. Aaron, you were there in person yesterday, mate. And what a game to come down for.
Oh, yeah. And like myself, I've only just started getting my voice back. It was lovely to be walking around Fratton, getting called Mr. Fish Tank and everything, get shouted at. It was like, oh, there we go. But a big shout out to little Joshua. I was talking to you yesterday and everything. I hope you enjoyed the game. All the very best to you. I hope you enjoyed it yesterday. Yeah, so the game yesterday, yeah, it was breath of fresh air, really. Played a new formation. Yeah, it was a bit nerve-wracking for after 10 minutes. We were playing well. But yeah, it's going to take time. We haven't played a formation like that for ages. We're normally 4-3-2-1 or whatever Danny used to play. So it's going to take time. Macy, outstanding. For his first game for us, absolutely outstanding. And Dale, definitely my man of the match. He was just everywhere, making a nuisance of himself. Even our centre-back, Towler, he shut the door completely. He wouldn't let anyone through, and he was very quiet. But what he did in that defence was amazing, absolutely amazing. I'm still not happy with Tunnicliffe. I just think the too many missed passes and everything as well. But Curtis also a little bit off the pace, I think, when he came on in the second half. But then, do you think Pack's goal? It did actually remind me a little bit of Norris versus Scum all them years ago. The same sort of effort and everything he had. Bit quiet at Fratton Park during the game, but I think once we actually scored, we got our voice a little bit, and there was a little bit more confidence there in the team as well. But you can see the lack of confidence because the amount of shots that were just going over wide. Dale would have scored all of them opportunity if he had the confidence behind him. But it's still early days in the new era. So hopefully once I've actually learnt this formation and actually learn how to pass to each other, so many missed opportunities there. But luckily Exeter's players and everything weren't actually, their strikers didn't finish some of their shots as well. But that about the game, regarding the remembrance for everyone as well, I think it was absolutely fantastic that the ref actually stopped play. All the players standing there applauding, all the Exeter players, fans applauding as well. Total respect and rest in peace, little Ace. But overall, the whole day was absolutely fantastic, and the sun was shining as well. And our first win since, God knows how long now. Stupid, ridiculous, really.
4.5 months since the Fratton Park League win, put it that way. Pepe, good evening. I'm about to add one of your press box colleagues to the conversation as well. Very good evening and big welcome to Andrew. Pepe, talk to me about Marlon Mendes. What did you think?
Oh, what a player he is. For the last couple of months, I think we've all noticed that Marlon's sort of not been on the pace. I think before Danny left, Danny was also quite vocal on behind the scenes that Marlon probably wasn't at his best. We were all saying Charlton, really, where he got sent off around that period, he sort of dipped a little bit, and his performances haven't really been up to what we saw in the first couple of games of the season. Then he got moved into in front of the centre backs yesterday, and from what I saw, first half he wasn't as great, but second half he was a class of his own. I think the midfield in general yesterday as well. All three of them played well. Morrell obviously got licensed to go forward a bit more than what we've seen. Pack was quite happy just to sit there in front of the two defenders, and he looked solid. And I think that was probably one of his best performances in probably a couple of months. And that reflected in the win and that reflected in the performance, really, didn't it?
I hope Mr. Moon can hear us. For some people joining us in the UK and around the world, it might not be an instantly recognisable face, but I'm sure as soon as you hear his voice, you'll be straight on it. How nice was it to be talking about a Pompey win at Fratton Park on the comms for the first time in what's felt like too long, Andy? We don't know. He's gone sideways, and we can't hear him. We'll take him out and let him do a. We'll take him out and let her do a refresh. Gaz, you watched it from around the world, as I mentioned to Andy there. What was it like for you seeing Fratton Park? And Aaron said it wasn't particularly amazing atmosphere-wise. I think it was kind of getting to that point once we had a little bit of confidence and wind in our sails. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, it was a good watch. You know, obviously on the iFollow, just disappointed every time I come over to the UK. We haven't had a win for a while, so enjoy this one while we can, for sure. Because I don't know when, obviously, when the next one's going to come along, but hopefully it's going to be on Tuesday, and push on from there. But what I saw on the iFollow, the first half we huffed and puffed, getting to know a few combinations. Obviously, a new coach coming in with some new ideas. Some new, shall we say, license to go forward on some players like Morrell, like he said in his interview, he had a bit more freedom to go forward a bit more. Pack, like we said before, he gets a cold. Everyone, if he sneezes, everyone gets a cold. It's like that sort of thing. Like we said, if he has an off day, it's like losing two players in that team. Yesterday, he was a general. It was good to have him back, and you can see what it means to him when he scores a goal. He's Pompey through and through. And I think with that captain's armband yesterday, that was an extra boost for him as well. All in all, yesterday, second half was really good to see. We counted more than 4 passes, which is obviously when at the Bolton game, we couldn't string 4 passes together. At least yesterday, we could string 6 or 7. So it was really pleasing to see. I think the whole occasion was obviously with the remembrance of Anton, and then the Exeter fans, fantastic, 1,500 of them, all applauding, one family, football, all that, and I can't thank them enough, for what they did for tribute for us as well. Really good club, really good fans. All in all, look really good. Positives going forward for sure. And now hopefully we'll get some change arounds now with possibly people coming back from injuries. We've still got 9 days, left to the transfer window. So possibly some more outs, more coming in. The only thing is, he hasn't got a lot of time now before the Fleetwood game. But, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Because, if we play that second half game, if we start tomorrow, on Tuesday, as we finish the game, then Fleetwood are going to be in for a shock.
Hugh said, good start, but let's not get too carried away. If Exeter took their chances, would have been much different. Something to build on. Let's hope the owners back the new gaffer financially. And there was another one from Jamie here who said, good evening, lads. I thought the game yesterday was a good start to getting back to winning ways again. And Marlon, his goal was good. Let's hope we can progress on and keep building again. But Glenn said, I had an interesting conversation yesterday. Apparently, Cowley was overtraining during pre-season and genuinely was the reason why we have so many injuries and why Lowry got injured again. Rob said, first half, we never looked like scoring. Second half was great. Hopefully, Marlon's goal has a similar impact to the team as Mendez's goal had. There we go. Jack, good evening. Sorry to you waiting, but it's busy around here tonight, so sorry to keep you till 15 minutes in. Are you surprised, maybe shocked, or even pleased for John Mousinho getting his first win under his belt as a manager, first win at Fratton Park and first win as Pompey head coach?
I'm pleased. I am really, really pleased with Mousinho. I think, like I was on the stream when he got announced, there was a little bit of surprise there, but I think he's come in and, like you say, he's changed formation. I thought he might go with something that we've seen before. He didn't want to make too many changes to what is quite a surprise appointment in the first place, but he's gone, and in 2 days of training, very, very short amount of time, he's made a couple of tweaks already. There seems to be an improvement, the result being the big one. So yeah, I'm pleased to see Mousinho. I thought I watched his press conference. He really, really did look, I think the articulate way of him, I think, expressing the way that he wants his side to play short-term, long-term, and his general vision to the football club. I think you should all be very, very excited. I think even his post-match interview as well, I thought he was very, very, I'll use the word again, articulate, but also I think analytical in the way that he broke down the game. I think he was honest as well that the first half, from what I saw, they started the game really well. Then a little bit of a drop off allowed Exeter to sort of get a little bit of rhythm in the game. And the second half, it looked like the much better side. And then there's a lot of improvements. But in 2 days, or one training session, 2 days, I think you've got to be pretty impressed by that. And Mousinho, I think, will be waking up this morning relieved, excited, but yeah, impressed generally.
Absolutely. I wanted to try and get Mr. Moon back in, but he's still having issues. So we will speak to him. We'll definitely speak to him. Get Blotted said, I saw a lot of really negative feedback from Plymouth fans about Matt Macy, and I was apprehensive about him as a result. He was absolutely fantastic on Saturday. Brendan, Mike, I was going to say to you, and I said to you before we went on air, goes to show how maybe the opinion of opposition fans on former players shouldn't be taken as gospel always.
No, I've got a friend who's a Luton supporter and the season ticket holder, and he came down to Fratton Park when we were in the same league, and I was speaking to him about him. I said we'd signed him. He said, well, he said good luck with him. He said because he's their number 4 goalkeeper at Luton. Well, I'll tell you what, if they're number 4, their first 3 must be pretty good, because Matt Macy was absolutely outstanding yesterday and deserves, I think, the man of the match. Definitely, with those 2 worldly saves, I think they were, and also the one at 1v1, absolutely superb. He commanded well, he kicked well. Distribution, apart from just kicking, was good. I've got nothing bad to say against the guy. And actually, after the game, after I'd come out of the Victory Lounge, walking where the players go to their cars, and he was there doing signatures like all the rest of them do. So he's fallen in line with that straight away, which is really, really good. The kids were talking to him, photographs and everything, and I thanked him for his efforts yesterday, which, yeah, he did appreciate. He said, thank you very much. So, yeah, good signing, good loan signing.
Brendan, it was really the goal going in that gave us that moment of confidence, and it shows that we weren't too far away from putting on a show, and all of a sudden we could find each other, and the pockets were there, and the moments and the opportunities came our way, and we benefited as a result.
Yeah, yeah, spot on, completely. I find that with a lot of our games this year, the games where we've drawn or, we've lost and we've gone behind, I always felt like if we get 1 goal, we will go and get another, and we potentially might even get another after that. So it's that little click that we need. Yeah, what an effort though from Marlon Pack. 2 goal of the month in the space of 5 weeks. December's goal of the month, and now I reckon he's going to get January's goal of the month as well. So brilliant, and especially special for Joe as well, getting his first goal for the club. Even how sort of like lucky it was that Jamal Blackman was injured and he sort of spilt it into his own net. But if it goes in, it goes in. I'm happy. I'll take the 2-0 win, definitely.
I'm very much hoping that this is the man himself. But if he is with us, then Kobe, a very warm welcome to the stream. Thank you for being such an incredible young talent. Someone else is a very warm welcome to the stream. We're going to give this another go. Welcome to Mr. Moon. Can you hear us, sir? How are you?
Yeah, I'm coming across as a Luddite who can't use technology, but I'm now older than both the head coach and the sporting director. So any notion of being young is clearly gone.
Let me.
You answer me.
Thank you.
Let me start with the question I wanted to ask you at the top of the show, which was how much nicer is it for you in the commentary box to be sat there talking about a game where there's a bit of noise around you, smiles on people's faces for once?
It's just so much easier to have fun and enjoy it when that's the case, and people listening are smiling and enjoying it rather than throwing their radio or headphones against the wall in frustration. Yes, a much more enjoyable process all round. Much nicer speaking to a manager after a game like that, and yeah, it always is a commentator. It always makes our lives that little bit easier when there's a Pompey win, and a little bit better as well.
Absolutely. In about 10 minutes time or so, we're going to dedicate 10 minutes of the stream to chatting to Andrew and all about his Solent experiences over the last couple of years in the press box of Pompey. And I'm sure Pepe will be able to add to the conversation there too. We'll just wrap up on what we're talking about with Exeter for the next 10 minutes or so. There is a poll in the live chat down below, which you can use to choose. The best thing about being live is that we can see exactly how people are feeling. And we've got a man of the match poll up and running at the moment. They're split actually. Joe Morrell and Owen Dale have 14% share of the vote. Second place is Marlon Pack with 26%, and leading the way is Matt Macy with 46% of the vote. And Gaz, that's probably fair enough, isn't it? Because he very much kept us in it in that one.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I was very impressed with him, considering You know, he's got like that new line in front of him, new environment, new fans. It's everything. It's literally thrown into the lion's den, shall we say? But he looked confident. His distribution was good. The 2 saves he pulled off in the first half, you know, I've videoed it and put it in the stream, and I've watched it again and again since then. The first one was, that fingertip was amazing, you know, and he was composed and he didn't seem flustered. And then he had that one-on-one in the second half. Luckily, the Exeter guy just put that touch too far, so it was a good save. But I think the striker made it easier for him. But after that, straight away he's looking up, distribution. He settled in really well, and it's good that, you know, we've got this new guy. Obviously, it's unlucky for Josh. Obviously, Josh has done well in the past for us, but again, it's nice to have that opportunity to look at somebody new and see where we go from here. It's going to be like that one of the things. Do we fall in love with another lone player like we did with Bazuna, and then he goes away? You know, it's these loans, we fall in love with them, and then they just disappear. They break our hearts, you know. So I'm pleased for the guy, but I'm not in love with him just yet.
Good evening to the 363 people that join us across YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for being with us tonight. This is 4-0 Sunday Live. If you've never been before, well, we've been doing quite a few in the start of January, and people have seemed to be enjoying them. So thank you for being with us. We'll look forward to hearing what you've got to say tonight. Ollie said, thought Macy was outrageous yesterday, but to be fair, he didn't really have much to do low down, which can be difficult for a keeper of his size. Barry has commented on his shot stopping as well. And there's one for you, Andy. Gav listens to you on his AirPods for the commentary, even though he's at every game at Fratton Park. He doesn't always see everything, so he relies on you to see as much as he possibly can.
He'll know when we're talking rubbish as well.
Absolutely, he'll be able to call you out, yes. Milton said, really like the look of Macy, very solid throughout the game. Jeff has left us waiting, really. He said, hello, gents, I'm cautiously optimistic that the addition of, and he hasn't finished his sentence. So, Jeff, get back to us on that, because we're dying to hear what you got to say. Jack, I wanted to ask you, because this is quite it's a great situation for us to be in here on Fournilwrittenalloverit. We've got two chaps, journos at the football club, who've managed to speak to this guy already, which is great, and I'm hoping to get a little bit of insight in the next couple of minutes. From your point of view as an Oxford United fan, I wanted to ask you, and this might seem a little bit negative of me, but I think it's important that we ask, what's Mousinho like coming out, fronting up to cameras and press after a loss? Have you ever seen him come out wearing the captain's armband at Oxford and been brutally honest about the failings of his side? Or you know, we've seen him so far. He doesn't seem to have many set phrases. He's tending to speak his mind so far. What can we expect from him when things aren't quite going so well?
Supposedly, there isn't one game that sort of screams and shouts as one where he has, gone out and said anything rash. I think he is still, he's calm. He's really, really calm. I think you can see the way that he expresses himself just generally. He seems to be very articulate and very clever, the way that he definitely words things in quite a spectacular way in all circumstances, whatever he's being asked. And so, to be honest with you, if I'm going to be completely honest answering your question, there isn't one occasion that springs to mind where he has had to come out and be quite, I imagine he probably has been on the back of quite a few losses at his time at Oxford, but there isn't one where he's had to come out and I think he hasn't lost his head, for example. He hasn't been, I think he will be honest. I think he will be honest. I think even in the game where you won that, when you won 2-0, you could still see he wasn't, he was still very, very clever with the way that he pointed out there were areas that he wanted to improve. There are moments in that first half where you did allow X to get a foothold in the game and they did come forward. They did cause a couple of problems. Second half was much better. So I think he is very analytical with the way that he answers questions. And you'd expect to see that in the good times and also the bad times, because there will be difficult times. He's not going to come in and win every single game. There's going to be opportunities for him to say how he feels. And there's going to be those moments where he's going to have to be straight with the fans, because that can be also quite frustrating as well when managers come out and don't maybe watch the same game, or maybe they do, but they won't honestly admit they're watching the same game as the supporters. But I think he is the type of guy that's going to come out and I think be pretty fair with his assessment of games.
Louis Platt says, my man of the match was Swanson, was mustard once again. Love that boy. And I think I agree. Every single time I see Swanson, it's another tick in his box to say that's another great performance. Danny said, Towler also looked accomplished and a good addition. I wanted to ask you about Towler, actually, Reese. I mean, he's proving to be a centre-back to me. I know we've only seen him come on against Bolton and we were kind of down and out of it at that point, weren't we? Let's be honest with each other. But he came on at Bolton and he looked sharp and we couldn't really make an opinion of him then. but he looks like he's willing to take the ball on. He's driving forward. He's trying to make stuff happen, confident with the ball at his feet as well. So hopefully, and he's still young and he's ours as well for the next couple of years too. So one for the future and one also very much for the present in this current Pompey setup.
Yeah, I thought he had a fantastic game yesterday. And like you said, he came on against Bolton before yesterday. And I think we've all got up to, a little bit more confident in knowing that with Morrison moving on and obviously Robertson now injured, that we know that Towley can fill in automatically and feel very confident at the back, especially how Macy and Towler obviously made their full debuts at home. Obviously Macy's in general. But I do believe it only took him about 3-4 minutes before he, really started getting the faithful behind him. He was rock solid. He dealt with the strikers pretty well. And you can tell that he likes to move the ball forward, get it going quickly. And as soon as he came on the pitch, I thought he was the younger brother of Raggett to start with. But he obviously moves a lot quicker and he's not as, stiff when turning.
That's it. Brendan looked a lot... Brendan didn't look a lot more structured. I thought we looked a lot more structured overall. This question's for Brendan. It takes looking back at the game and seeing this from kind of a bit of a distance. That 4-3-3 tends to become a bit of a 2-5-3, and especially in our attacking moments. Swanson and Ogilvie are right up to and beyond the halfway line in large parts. And Mousinho mentioned Raggett and Towler that Reece has just been waxing lyrical about having to go man-to-man as our centre-backs. And I think even a little tweak like that permits Joe Morrell to be in the spaces that he found in order to score the second goal. And he maybe arguably could have got two if that second chance had presented itself had he scored the first one. And have the chances to score like he did on yesterday. It's amazing to see how little tweaks can actually really rocket us and get us moving again.
Yeah, definitely. I remember Retro Sean was saying recently, saying that Ogilvy's not going past the halfway line, maybe because he's worried about how sort of solid we haven't been defensively. But yeah, Ogilvie getting up and down the wings was a lot better to see yesterday. Much more improvement, like the Ogilvie of old, like the start of the season, the first 11 games where he was bombing up and down and getting assists and getting goals, which was good to see. And I think Pack has worked well. Now he's got two men in the middle with him, being Tunney and Morrell and Pack. It gives Pack the reason to sit and hold. He's not having to be a box-to-box, which probably he's not. Obviously, he's in his 30s. Well, he's 30 now, if not older. So he's getting towards the sort of latter age of his career, but maybe he can't do as much running as he probably could have done 10 years ago when he was a bit sharper. But yeah, having those two players closer to him really helped him play, and yeah, just attacking with much more pace and more bodies is helping us out to no end. It's brilliant.
Mike, we'll come back to you if I may, because I know Jack's got to shoot off. I just wanted to quickly, Jack, you popped in there. It's very fancy and swanky. We've got a private chat on the stream that only the people on your screen can actually see. Jack, ask that question to Pepe because he's the man in Ports of News.
I have just Googled it. It is true.
You've Googled it?
Okay.
True. Did you see his name attached to it on the byline by any chance? Or
I'm actually reading. I'm on the Oxford Mail, so I'm sorry.
Of course he is.
I'm very, very sorry. It's the first one that came up. No, it is true. It is true, which I didn't know whether
you might need to say.
I didn't even say what it was it?
Yeah.
It's the Oxford Portsmouth sort of transfer thing. It's a 12-month almost embargo, isn't it, between two clubs where there can't be a transfer that John Mousinho, now of course as Pompey manager, can do. I understand it from an Oxford perspective. I don't know whether I saw a couple of people say in the comment section about no Cameron Brannigan then. I mean, you can still buy him in a year if he doesn't go in the summer. But yeah, I think that's quite interesting, actually. I haven't seen that before. I don't know whether or not anyone else has sort of seen that in a contract before. I get it from an Oxford perspective. They want to protect assets. They want to protect their players. I know John Mousinho had a good relationship with players. I imagine Portsmouth do have a bigger transfer budget. I don't want to go into finances with Portsmouth side of things, and that's a bit of a sore subject at times. But I think... I imagine they will have a bigger transfer budget, so they probably can entice players from Oxford to Pompey. But interesting that is a fact.
Jack, thanks very much. I know you've got to shoot off.
Take care, everybody. Well done yesterday as well.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And, thanks for Mousinho, mate. That was the biggest shout. We'll come back with the journos in a second. Before we do so, let's take a look at the next couple of weeks in store for Pompey. That was a bit more bearable after yesterday's for sure. We'll be chatting about it shortly, but a trip to Fleetwood awaits for Pompey in a few days' time. Peterborough is our destination next Saturday, a team who is also under new yet familiar leadership for them. Depending on those results, Barnsley's trip to Fleetwood could have one or two more permutations than it does right now, followed by that tasty Devon encounter. Myself, Retro Shirt Sean, Richard Owen, Brendan and Mike will all join you from Home Park for our trip to Plymouth. Fratton Park will be back under the lights for the visit of Burton Albion, which is, of course, Craig McGilvery's new side. And finally, a visit to Sincilbank on the 18th of February for John Mousinho's Blue and White Army. Right then, Andy, I wanted to ask you a question that I'd love to ask you. Your first impressions of John Mousinho, and you're in, as I said earlier, in a unique position where you've had a chance to chat twice, both pre-match as he came in and then after the result of yesterday. And in just your second conversation, you're already talking about the all-important managerial attire, which I thought was maybe slightly telling of what you've made of him so far.
Yeah, that question wouldn't have been asked if it had been a 3-0 defeat, I think it's fair, it's fair to say. Yeah, I mean, I was as shocked as anyone when I first heard on the jungle drums it was possible. He is clearly, he's very intelligent. He's a really smart guy. He's well-spoken. Those are qualities which are good in a person. Doesn't automatically mean he's going to be a great manager, but he's come across really well. I've only had a little bit of a chat with him before I did the interview on Friday, but it's been so sort of hectic, and hopefully at some point I'll get a proper chance to sort of sit down and get to know him a bit better. But he comes across as a really likable guy, and obviously I've spoken to numerous other people who know him, and they all speak really highly of him as a person, and that's certainly great from our point of view going forward. How he'll do, who knows? It is a gamble. I think everyone would acknowledge that's the case, but he's clearly someone who has had an eye on being a head coach or manager for a very long time now.
Pepe, you were in the press conference as well with Andy. Would you echo what he said there? First impressions of Mousinho?
Yeah. The overall unveiling, he spoke confidently. He spoke well after Andy Cullen. He was speaking about his desire to become a manager, what his ambitions are for the club, and just why it fits. And I think when you add everything up about what Pompey want, what Pompey are looking at, they wanted to go down the head coach role. I know I spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to go down that route. They wanted to look at someone different, someone younger. Obviously, there were names like Liam Manning and Foster going about. They're obviously young, but they've had experience. Then Mousinho came out Thursday afternoon, Thursday lunchtime, and everybody was like all up in the air about it. And people didn't really know what to expect. But I think after yesterday, and what's been said in the press and how he's spoken on camera, everybody's quite impressed by him. So I think, like Macy, everybody's quite quick to jump to conclusions. And I think that's why you've got to give people time. And Andy Cullen said it was a long-term appointment. I know he talked about playoffs and everything else in the short term, but this is really a long-term appointment. And you look at Kieran McKenna and Stephen Schumacher, they were coaches before. I know Mousinho was a player coach at Oxford, so it's not quite the same route. He's played 8 times this season, of course, and no real managerial experience at all, but it's down the same route as McKenna and Schumacher. And I know Pompey before yesterday were 1 win in 15, so it's different circumstances, but it's the right idea, and that's the same situation. Ipswich and Plymouth went down, so yeah, I think you've got to give him a chance. And what we spoke about, what me and Andy spoke to him about on Friday, he seems confident, and you've just got to trust him. And I think that's the best way to go at the moment.
Andy, you also spoke to Joe Morrell after the match. What a wholesome listen that was. And if he's coming out and saying what he said to you, I can imagine there's similar conversations, if not more personal ones, going on in the dressing room. How much for not only is a talent to have at Portsmouth Football Club, but he's a credit to the club as a whole too.
Yeah, didn't record our conversations about American football that might have bored some listeners afterwards. Probably for the best. No, Joe Morrell's what you see is what you get. He's a good player for various reasons. He's had a bit of a frustrating spell in terms of injury and even illness, and you've got to think back to last year that COVID really wiped him out. But you can hear what a good guy he is, and I think he's someone who's going to really kick on. I got the feeling that Mousinho had a kind of quick sit down with some players individually on Friday, probably went through quite a few of them, but it's going to be difficult, and I'm sure he'll want to have proper conversations with everyone, but he's going to have such a hectic schedule coming up this week that he's almost got to worry about getting these 2 games out of the way before he focuses on getting his feet under the desk.
Because for people that might not otherwise be aware, and Andy and Pepe will know all about this, but there's press on a Monday. There's also press on a Thursday. So quite a lot of his time will be taken out by that. So there's not really that much time before Fleetwood anyway, is there?
No. So I would imagine he'll do press tomorrow morning. They'll train and they'll probably head off lunchtime on the coach. And he actually said that one of the things is when he's on the coach on the way up, that might be a time where he can sit down and chat to people, because they are going to be spending a lot of time on the coach this week, because then they'll get home in the early hours of Wednesday morning, have Wednesday off, normal day Thursday, and then Friday I'd imagine they'll train in the morning and probably head up again to Peterborough in the afternoon. So it's a pretty hectic schedule from that point of view, but if he keeps picking up results, he won't mind too much.
Absolutely. Before I open it up to the rest of the gents on the panel, because I know these guys are dying to fire questions your way. Both James and Stephen on Facebook and YouTube want to know if they can go to bed yet, Andy. Would you mind, if people aren't aware, could we just explain that story to them?
Yes, I think that was a tweet back when Joe Rafferty signed in the summer. I got told about it and I just tweeted, "Don't go to bed yet." And then it kind of has snowballed from there as a metaphor for whether there's going to be any signing or announcement taking place tonight. All I can say is today, for the first time in a very long time, I have kept away from my phone. I've not been ringing, pestering, asking anyone what's going on. So in all honesty, I don't know, but I would guess, I think Sunday night's a fairly unlikely unveiling for a new signing, but that's a guess more than anything else.
I was hoping you were going to say, for this one night, I'm absolutely sure that, but you didn't, so that's a shame. But I'm sure when we next have you on, you might have something that we can look forward to on a Sunday, because there is a lot of January transfer windows still to run, of course. Reece, anything you wanted to ask Andy?
Yeah, of course. So Andy, obviously you've been, doing commentary for a while for Pompey, home and away and things. And basically, I just want to know, for myself and other Pompey fans around, what one's been the one that stood out the most for you in a positive way? This doesn't just have to be related to the Pompey result itself, but it could be something that's happened in your life that you remember that day for. So what's been your best day doing commentary for Pompey, and what's been your worst day?
Best day, without question, was the promotion at Notts County, just because it was just incredible. 5,000 Pompey fans, the pitch invasion, the fact that Notts County allowed Pompey carte blanche to celebrate as they wanted. I managed to grab in a radio mic and climb down amongst the players who were celebrating. Just an incredible day. And there is a slight personal link to it, because I went to uni in Nottingham, so I used to go and watch Notts County, and actually Meadow Lane was the ground I did my first ever football commentary for University Radio Nottingham. So it's a kind of, I absolutely love going back to Meadow Lane, even if it's going to be a game that's incredibly dull. So to have a moment like that really stuck out. Worst, I do remember Rochdale away under Richie Barker, from a footballing point of view, was fairly grim. But probably from a technical point of view, if people remember the Harrogate game in the FA Cup. So normally we have a presenter on the radio who, fills halftime and does the pre and post match program. But that day, for some reason, we decided there wouldn't be a presenter. So it was just me and Guy in Harrogate. And then obviously we're on air at 7 thinking 7:45 kickoff. There's a floodlight failure. We've just basically got to talk for an hour and 40. The power never went back on in the part of the press box I was in. So we were just broadcasting off batteries. It was a grim game. And I always say that anyone who says 3G is the same with grass should be forced to sit and watch that game in its entirety to realise it's not the case. And that is still the only time I've ever left a football ground after midnight.
Wow. Yes, that's a story and a half. Before we come to Brendan and Mike, Leo's a big fan, Andy. He says he loves the commentary and he's always tuning into you and Guy. He's also asked, Leo, what do you think of Pompey fans, and are they the best you've seen?
I think what's so brilliant about Pompey is that the passion, people care so much. And I even think there are people who want to tell you they don't care anymore, or they become disillusioned, but it's not true. They almost just care too much. The noise at Fratton Park it's not always, but can be incredible. I'm trying to think, scratching my head. I tell you one ground, and this is a fairly left field one that stands out. I remember fairly early on, and a couple of times, it's probably not like that anymore, but remember going to Newport for I think it was an EFL trophy when Guy was manager actually, and Newport hammered Pompey. And I remember sitting in that old wooden stand thinking, this place is deafening. Now, Newport were on their rise up, and the times I've been back, it's not been quite the same. But I just that was a game that really stood out as being deafening. But Pompey fans are very special. It's an island city. There's just that extra care about the club.
Absolutely. Brendan, Mike, floor's yours, gents.
Well, I've actually got a few. I've been writing them down whilst we've been sort of doing it tonight because I thought I need a bit of fresh. So prepare yourself. No, I'm just
go for it.
So my first one is the notorious interview with Paul Cook after the Macclesfield first round FA Cup match. Obviously, people who haven't seen it, explain a bit more into that. And have you had any other interviews where they've gone a bit south a bit?
Yeah, so the Paul Cook interview after Macclesfield, Pompey won 2-1. He'd done an interview with the club, and I heard him basically moaning about the performance. So I opened up with something like, a win, Paul, but are you satisfied with that performance? And he was not happy. And I basically just kept asking pretty much the same question again and again. And then after about a minute, he just actually started answering. And to be honest, by the end, he was almost apologising for it. So it was Paul Cook just didn't like doing post-match interviews. So ultimately, these things happen. Actually, very early in my career, I got sent to interview Alan Pardew when he was managing another club we won't mention.
No, you've got
to. Yeah, I was a pretty rookie. I hadn't done that many interviews at that point, and he really took exception to something I said. And he, off air, really kind of went for me, sort of hairdryer treatment. And kind of right now, if that happened, I'd probably just sort of roll my eyes or something. But at the time, it was fairly, it's kind of when you're a young journalist and that happens, it's actually quite devastating. But you learn over time that these things happen. No one's trying to annoy a manager, but these things just sometimes that's what happens in football.
Yeah, I find obviously Paul Cook most of the time his voice had gone, isn't it? So he wouldn't really be in the mood talking either, would he? He was a bit hoarse, wasn't he?
Yeah, the voice with Paul Cook was bizarre.
It was. There's an interview he did not about a couple of years ago. I think it was at Ipswich, and his voice changed pitch about 5 times throughout the interview, which was quite funny, wasn't it? Next one goes, and obviously, whenever I'm not at a game, I'm watching it through the iPhone. I always like listening and giving Guy Whittingham his the trivia you give him in the first half. So, do you take long to research them, or have you got a decent sort of football memory, probably like myself? An obscure football memory, I say.
I mean, my football memory is fairly good, but given that some of Guy's goals were scored when I was 3 years old at the club, it's not that good. There's actually a website I have to credit. It's called Pompey-Rama, and it has got a fairly comprehensive list. I don't know if it's as up to date as it was, but if you want particularly that sort of late 80s, early 90s, it will give you the lineup for every game Pompey played and the goal scorers. So I use that and a few other websites and various things I've remembered to try and dig something out. But so it probably takes about 10 minutes a game. It's normally not too bad. But then, like with Fleetwood, I'll probably have to come up with something a bit more left field, as obviously a guy won't have ever played at Fleetwood, let alone scored there.
Yeah.
Andrew, a couple of questions for you from me. People are saying on the line, are asking, are you a Portsmouth fan? So you can say yes or no to that in a second. Is there anybody that you wanted to interview after a game and they flatly refused and weren't very nice to you? That they didn't want to carry it on. And also your colleagues in the office. Now, I've met you in your office after I did something on the radio a while back. And I know you all sit in a big open office and all you sports guys all sit together. How do you get on with them? And how many of them are Southampton supporters? And are you the only Portsmouth one?
So, no, I'm not the only Portsmouth one. And I try not to shout too much about allegiances because I do, for South Sudan and such like, still get sent to St Mary's. And I basically sometimes am outside, just trying to keep my head down and not. So I try not to shout too much because I do get still sent to other places. And I mean, they're not necessarily the most threatening places, but I want to get out alive or at least without someone throwing something at me mid-live broadcast. No, there probably are more Southampton fans, but there are still quite a few Portsmouth supporters in the office. And actually, there's quite a few Bournemouth as well. So it's actually a fairly decent representation. Interview people who refuse to do an interview. So I haven't had too many people walk away mid. One random one that always comes into is like Ricardo Rocha back in the day just wouldn't do any interviews. And I've spoken to him a couple of times since, and he's such a lovely guy. I think he just must have got fed up with the press. But there are some players who after games don't want to talk. But to be honest, most of them are fairly polite about it. You don't really too often get players telling you where to go, and managers kind of have to do it.
So are you a Portsmouth supporter? And if so, what was your first game?
So my first footballing memory as a 6-year-old was a certain FA Cup semi-final in 1992, which I always tell people, I wasn't there. Yeah, I was watching it at home, but I always tell people, the perfect introduction to being a football fan, the incredible high you can get, and also the inevitable punch in the gut just when you think it's all gone wrong. First game at Fratton Park I ever went to was actually Alan Knight's testimonial, which was against Southampton. And I remember my dad took me and he was like, we're going to leave 10 minutes before the end, just to get away from the traffic. And obviously he then said the next day he kind of knew there was going to be trouble and wanted to get a young me. And so I think the first competitive game I went to at Fratton Park was, and actually this is interesting because I've got one of the few teams Pompey played, I've got a shirt of the opposition, Fiorentina, if anyone remembers, in the Anglo-Italian Cup. I went with my football team hailing St Andrews, and again a good introduction because Pompey lost 3-2 in the last minute. So you have to get these. It's better to learn young what's coming up for you.
Yeah.
Ed in the comments said Andrew and Guy's commentary is so much better than the other commentary you hear on iFollow. So there you go.
Thank you.
That's nice to hear from Ed. I can relate to what you're saying there with Southampton, Andy, because if I ever have to get a train through a certain central station or walk through West Quay, I always get a few more peculiar looks than I would elsewhere walking out and about. It's quite
the last time I got sent there to do a TV live outside, I was stood with a camera and 4 teenagers came up to me and I just thought, oh no. And then one of them just said, we're all Pompey fans as well. And I was like, oh phew, this is they're not gonna attack me and the cameraman, which I feared might be the case.
Relief. Aaron, all yours, mate.
Good evening, Andrew. So doing a commentary with Guy, who makes the decision on what packs of sweets you have for that week? And what is your favourite?
We normally buy individually to surprise each other, so it's an individual effort. Favorite, I'm Percy Pigs. You can't go too far wrong with, but then just why they're all pretty good, really.
Yeah, do you actually play a prank on Guy though to make to buy the really sour ones and give him them?
I do sometimes mix it up and get the sour ones and see. But he's not a massive fan of the sour ones. And I have found I did buy chocolate ones, and that didn't go down well. So you've got to stick to what you know.
To the Haribos.
The Haribos, yeah, they're a decent option.
Cool, thank you.
That's all right.
Any more, Aaron, or just the sweet questions?
No, it was just a sweet question because I always see Guy on the social media, always showing his packs of sweets, and I thought, I wonder who actually buys them.
Not allowed to open them till he's taken his photo for Twitter. So, and you'll see in the press box he'll be lining them up, and then they'll fall over, and he'll have to, he'll grab his microphone and use that as a stand to hold them up. And it feels like it's like a sort of youngster trying to do an Instagram shot, Guy, just trying to get it all perfectly lined up.
Yeah, no, Tom, I had an extra one for Andy. Sorry.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So obviously with John Mousinho coming in and everything with regards to his career at Oxford, I know at the end of before he joined us, he was a player coach. What do you know specifically with what he was doing at the club before joining Portsmouth? Like, what was his role? Did he take any major responsibilities away from Cole Robinson? Do you know any more in-depth details for us?
Yeah, he was a number 3. What I'm told is that he was responsible for the set pieces, which is a fairly kind of significant part, particularly in League One. So I don't know much more about his coaching pedigree, other than Guy obviously took him on his pro license and said he always came across well in that kind of environment. So yeah, set pieces at Oxford, but I don't know much more, because I'd imagine Carl Robinson probably the kind of manager who likes to be in control of everything.
Gaz flies many thousands of miles to be with us from Malta, Andrew. So he probably relies on your commentary the most out of the panel. Gaz, was there anything that you wanted to ask Andy?
Just one, obviously. When the fixtures come out at the beginning of the season, obviously you get the luxury of going to the press box with the nice seats, and I imagine it's all nice and heated, and it's really
no. Sorry, just to step in there. Press box.
Taking the mickey. Is there any ground that you think right, we've got to go there because of the press box? Maybe it's a situation where it's not the greatest, or is it like just basically what's the sort of worst press box environment you've been in? Basically, obviously you were at Spurs, weren't you? So
yeah, that was fairly decent, I have to say. I have to say, Accrington is always a nightmare, because it is. And it's nothing against the club. You get there, the people at Accrington, the other media, the people on the door, they're so friendly. They're so lovely. The ground has got this beautiful rolling Lancashire hills in the background, but there's one that it's 300 miles away, and two, you're sat about 4 rows back, level with the penalty area at one end. So your view of the other end is not particularly good. And there, sadly, someone told me that her husband passed away and she's not a regular anymore. But there used to be a woman, an old woman, who had a season ticket and used to sit just in front of the press box. And there was one game in particular that she did not like something I said, and she stood up, turned around mid-commentary. I had my headphones on, so I have no idea what she was saying, but she was wagging her finger at something I had said. So you have to just watch your mouth in Accrington.
What's Fleetwood like, for the benefit of Tuesday, Andy?
It's fairly tight. You don't have lots of room, but you actually have a fairly good. Ultimately, the most important thing is getting a good view of where you are. So it's a bit like Exeter on Boxing Day. We were actually on a slightly interesting scaffolding that seemed to be made out of plywood, basically on the halfway line, that we could only stand up in certain places, and we didn't get given chairs. And the ladder that you got up to the gantry was removed during the game. So we were kind of saying, what happens if there's an emergency? But luckily there wasn't. But for all the sort of slightly questionable health and safety, we had an absolutely perfect view of the pitch. So I'll settle for that more than just about everything else.
Normally, I'd now go to Pepe and say, is there anything you want to ask Andy? But I'm sure he's asked him anything he's ever wanted to know. Oh, he does. Go on then, mate. Go for it.
Go on.
How was the cake yesterday? Exeter put a photo of the cake in the press room. What was it like? Can you elaborate a bit more? Because obviously I was not there.
Yeah, I'm shame you weren't there. It was I was going to say standard Victoria sponge, but I feel that's doing it down, because it was absolutely perfect, lovely ratio of cake to icing, and definitely got me in the right spirits and frame of mind for the game.
I'm glad. Thank you. Thanks for
that. I've got one more special guest to add into the conversation in a moment. Before we do so, Brendan, Mike, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I've had a question come from my mates. He said, ask Andy, what's the biggest bit of news you reckon you've broken to the Pompey faithful?
Ooh, that's a good question. Gosh, I'd have to kind of look back. I guess I've had a few transfers that have been fairly decent. But I'm
1 million Marquis.
Sure. Sorry?
1 million Marquis. It turned out not living up to his price tag.
Well, yeah, that was one that didn't quite go. Yeah, I'd have to look back and go through. You just kind of end up forgetting these things over the time, but it is always a good feeling when you break a story.
And one from me is when the Eisners took over, how did you sort of, I know you obviously covered it and it's quite topical at the moment, but how did you feel talking to them?
Yeah, I was fairly keen to talk. I almost felt like I was in a sort of being a BBC political person who couldn't take sides and had to just try and present, because I was a PST member, but I decided not to vote because I just felt it was my job to try and stay neutral. Yeah, Michael was actually thought he did a fairly good job the first interview. But I have to be honest, I hadn't really heard of him until his name kind of came out there. But yeah, it was a very interesting time, and I think he was very well prepped. There was a lot of PR advice and people working with him, and he was well prepped and knew what to say and what not to say when he did his interviews.
Is there any chance of you getting a telephone interview with him sort of during this season to try and get something settled and come forward and ask some questions of him to be broadcast to the fans?
Yeah, so we did get to speak to him. I think was it in early October, and that was the first time I'd interviewed him since 2018. So I don't think it's that likely we'll get to speak to him on the telephone, but I'm hopeful that next time he comes over, and I get the feeling that may not be too far away. I'm sure he's going to be back over again at some point this season, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to speak to him then.
Okay, cheers, Andrew.
There's a fantastic comment that's just come in from the one and only Max Spotton, who said, "Can you ask Pepe about his latest yellow card incident?" Would we be able to expand?
I don't know. No, not really. I put something out which I shouldn't have put out, and I got in a bit of trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's all part and parcel of being a trainee reporter that I should respect things and not put stuff out there before it should go out.
Is that why you didn't go to the match yesterday?
Yeah. Maybe.
I just want to say as well. Oh, sorry, go on, Tom. Leave it.
Do you want to finish, Brendan? And then I've got another question for both Andy and Pepe together, to be fair. So
okay, no worries. Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew, obviously in the part since lockdown, I've been doing a bit more involved on BBC Solent as Pompey's fan. Sort of in the morning. Yeah, I say just want to thank you for sort of that original sort of talk I did for the Peterborough lockdown game, and then from there it's gone on to mornings with what's his chap name in the morning? That's
Alan Newman.
Alan Newman. That's it. And now Adam Blackmore's for a fan show as well. So thank you for the opportunity that you gave me, and obviously my little cameos I've done on South today as well. I've been really enjoyed doing it, and just want to say thanks for the opportunity you've given me.
Well, no, thank you. We appreciate you getting up early in the morning and coming on to talk to us. So thank you.
Right. We have slightly overrun a little bit, but I'm sure everyone was enjoying that conversation. We're going to get on to talk about our long old trip to Fleetwood Town. Before we do so, let's take a little look back at the last time we were up there. John Mousinho's first away trip as a manager is fast approaching. Pompey make the long trip to Lancashire to face a Fleetwood Town side on the road for the 5th time since January 2020. Pompey have remained unbeaten in all but one of those trips. Fleetwood Town have only been the right side of 3 points on one occasion since the 29th of October in the league. That win came at the New Meadow on New Year's Day. The Cod Army have conceded plenty of late goals this season but put up a fight at Hillsborough yesterday, recording a narrow 1-0 loss. Last time around on the road, Lee Brown was the difference maker in a 1-0 win for Pompey, the first away win of Danny Cowley's premiership. John Mousinho will be hoping that history repeats itself on Tuesday night. Now, I have to admit that was the first Danny Cowley win with fans present. Let's just make sure we get our fact checking right on Fournilwrittenalloverit. Right, we've obviously at this point we would have Ben join us for a chat. Unfortunately, he's not very well at the moment. He's had a bit of a problem with his meniscus. He's been in hospital, so we're all sending our love to him and hoping he's going to get well soon. And I'm sure he'll be back fighting fit as and when. Graham's loving the retro shirt, so thank you to Aaron and Gaz for the memo on that one. The all important question is, what's the score going to be at Fleetwood? Before we do so, I mentioned at the end of the game in the video yesterday, Reese, about can we do it on a cold Tuesday night away at Fleetwood? I was obviously buzzing after the win, and I went, I think we probably can, as a kind of impulse reaction. Do you genuinely think we'll be able to do it? And if so, what do you expect from the game?
I think we've got to go there, obviously optimistic. We've got the momentum, obviously, from the second half. New era, as we've obviously spoken about on the channel before. It's a tricky one because Fleetwood's, most of their results these seasons, they've either won or lost by 1 goal. So I've had a pretty decent look into how they've performed over consistently this season. But again, going off of the win from Saturday, there's no reason we can't go out and put out obviously a really good performance for all them travelling Pompey fans going.
Brendan, Mike, there's you can't actually see it on this graphic, but Fleetwood are not far below Pompey on that table. It's obviously quite a crucial one, because if you're thinking of this as this is one of our games in hand, of course, the postponement for the game where we went and played Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That was this is another thing, Andy. If you're not accustomed to a 4-0 Sunday Live, we do have a dog barking every now and again, and that'll be Aaron, so don't worry about that too much. What I was going to say is Fleetwood aren't too far below us. I think there's only a couple of places that separate us at this moment in time. But the major talking point would be, if that game in hand goes Pompey's way, all of a sudden you jump right up to the top of your screen and you're looking at sort of where Peterborough and Wickham are at this moment in time. And I know Peterborough only have one game on us instead of Wickham. What do you make of the significance of Tuesday night? Not just Mousinho's first game away from home in charge as a manager and in charge of Pompey, of course, or head coach, if you will. It's also really important in terms of us and getting ourselves back in contention, if that's what we're going to be going for.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Brendan and Mike, I do apologise. That's my fault. Too long of a winded question. Go for it.
Yeah. So basically, what one win, we've had the win. We're all upbeat. What we can't do is get carried away with ourselves. We know it's still going to be a tough season. Those 3 points that I think we will get, I think I'll give you my prediction now. I think it's going to be 2-1, and I think we're going to win. And then push us on for Saturday to go and get maybe another win. But yeah, we mustn't lose the sight of the fact that was our first win in our 10th game that we played. We had 9 losses before it. We just need to pull the reins back, just calm down, everybody. Great result, euphoria a little bit for a while, but yeah, well, I don't want it to end. Of course I don't, but I want us to be able to go away, feel confident, and play, and see the players playing like they hadn't done for the last 9 games. Well, not all of them, but some of the league games, obviously. I want them to put in as much work as they did on Saturday, and I want to see the players that played outstandingly continue to do so. We had some standout performances.
It goes against what you've just said there, Mike, but another Mike has said our 23-game unbeaten run has now started, so he's very positive, and he thinks we heard it here first.
I am positive, Tom, but we just got to just be careful. I'd love us to win the next 23 games and get put into the playoffs, but let's be realistic. Let's keep a level head and one at a time.
Brendan, you're making the trip with me. I don't know what's happened to Reese. He's back. You are making the trip with me. We're looking forward to it. We're going to have a pit stop because it is a long old way. That's me saying that. I think I'm going to choose the M6 toll as my destination of choice. That's normally roughly about halfway for the northwest trips. What do we reckon then? We're obviously making the trip and then excited to be back in Mousinho and the boys on the first away trip of his premiership at the club. But Fleetwood, they're having a really good season. And there was a point where they were more looking towards the top 10 of the league rather than where they are now.
Yeah, they're good. Scott Brown's obviously shown that he's a decent manager. He's he's a very stern person, we saw when he was a footballer. And, he can get his team going. He'll look at Pompey as a big game and want to get his lads up for it and try and stop this momentum that we're going to try and build. I do think we should make possibly one change to the team that started yesterday. I potentially would drop Michael Jacobs and put Ronan Curtis in on that left-hand side. Well, I think Ronan's a much better player out wide left, either him or Rico, either one of them. But I personally prefer to see Curtis get more of a run in and put himself in for a new contract in the summer, because we all know it's up. We just need to keep going, as we said, take it one game at a time, and just keep going one game at a time. Just go for it, really. Just don't try and sit back. Try and play positively and try and get a win.
Andrew says Aaron says 3-0 every game. Aaron, are you going to go for a 3-0?
No, I'm not actually. I'm going for 2-0. No, it's It was good to win on Saturday. Fantastic. It's what the players needed, that bit of confidence. So hopefully with the new manager, fine tweaks and everything, because we're going to be playing a 4-3-3. Them little final passes and everything that was misplaced and everything, hopefully he can sort that out. Like Mike said, we need to be realistic and calm ourselves down. It's going to be tough. It's going to be cold up there as well. So the lads have just got to take it easy, listen to the new manager, feel their strengths and everything. If we play like we did on Saturday, we will get a result. But I would drop actually Tunnicliffe and I'd bring on Thompson straight away. I'd have him starting in the squad this time, because when he came on Saturday, he was straight in there. Yeah, he got a yellow card within 10 minutes, but he just needs to calm that down a little bit. But he was a fantastic player before he got injured. So, I am still worried about Tunnicliffe, so drop him for Thompson. And then bring on Curtis as a super sub, and then get him on the left-hand side around about 60 minutes. But I think we will get a result there. But it's one of them games that is a must-win game because it is our game in hand, and we need to get back up that league a little bit. I am staying very quiet. We're not going to do unbeaten for the rest of the season. But, we need a good result there, and it would just be added confidence for all the players. So they're all on a high anyway. We just got to keep the momentum going and take it to Fleetwood.
Gaz, you're looking at that, and Gaz was actually the chap that suggested we do these player ratings and include them as a part. This is not what you'll find on the app of choice, which I'm not going to promote, but I've edited them ever so slightly so that they give a little bit more of a fairer view of things. Gaz, your thoughts overall on kind of the way in which Saturday went and how important that is to bring particularly the second half performance into Fleetwood on Tuesday night?
Yeah, I mean, formation-wise, it suits our players that we've got available. You can see, obviously, Raggett there is being sort of made to look better with Towler next to him. They did really well at the back yesterday. Raggett didn't have a lot to do, and sometimes he does get a little bit scary in matches. But, a lot more calm and composed yesterday. With Swanson and Ogilvie going forward, obviously, they've got more freedom to go past that halfway line and obviously supported by obviously the wide men as well. But in the midfield, obviously a lot stronger at the moment than we have been in the past. Tunnicliffe, he's hit and miss. 45 minutes in a game, he's good. 45 minutes in the game, he's not so good. But possibly maybe a change for Tunnicliffe. I mean, the good thing about the game on Tuesday, it's still got that bounce back effect or bounce back ability, shall we say, from literally the new manager coming in, and it's that new manager sort of momentum, shall we say. We haven't got time to think about going on the pitch, training. It's literally straight into the next game. They're going to be buzzing. They've already come out and said that the last sort of 9-10 games have been disappointing, and the players said they need to make amends of that. They did a great showing on Saturday. If they take the momentum into the Fleetwood game, that's only going to build confidence again, ready for the Peterborough game. If we can get, a result tomorrow, that puts us in a good place for Saturday. We'll get a good following. Fans will go up there for Peterborough, and it could be a good week. 9 points would be amazing from this week. I mean, it would be amazing. But like Mike said, let's not get too carried away. But I'm confident of a win tomorrow.
And good news as well, Gaz, is that the recall option for Owen Dale and Dane Scarlett, we're led to believe has passed now. How much is that going to have a lot of positive energy for this group, knowing that one of our thank you very much, I've just been delivered a squash. One of our star performers is going to be available for selection towards the end of the season and the business end of the season at that as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves Dale. Everyone likes Dale. He knows what he does for the club. He's been up and down that pitch. He gives his all on that pitch, and it's good that he's staying. They can always have a little bit of a mental thing for a player, thinking, is there going to be a recall option? But he seems happy, and he always plays 100% when he puts the shirt on, and that's all we can ask for. Let's just hope now we can get Bishop firing, because that's once we start getting him firing goals, we're going to be a little bit better off striking wise. We still need a striker. I still think we need another winger. Maybe another defensive player just in case one of them gets injured at the back. Obviously, 9 days to change all that. But ultimately, the squad that was there yesterday is going to be going up there on Tuesday. So nothing. I don't think you can tweak much really, because say finish that second half. That's how we start with Fleetwood. We need to start as long as we're not out of the game by half time. That's all we ever ask for as a Pompey fan. So we don't want to be like 4-0 down at half time like we were against Northampton. You know, it's like game, set and match. It's like to be in the game. So looking forward to the Fleetwood game and the I Follow commentary.
Absolutely. I like how you got that one in there. More of the same would be lovely, wouldn't it? Pepe, you off to Fleetwood, mate? We're going to see you
no, I've got away with that one. Luckily, I've got out of doing that. So I can't say I'm jealous of everybody that's going. I'd rather stay at home and stay in the warmth than go up to Fleetwood for the longest game of the season. So, yeah, luckily I'm not going to that. But I've just seen my rota for this week, so I could be going to Peterborough away as a fan. So,
there we go.
Yeah, that'll be a nice away day again. So, yeah, luckily not going to Fleetwood, which I'm really not jealous of.
Good. I've space in the car, mate, if you need a little lift up to Peterborough.
No, I'm all right. I'll pass on that one, mate.
Thanks.
You got the electric car, Tom? That Andrew's electric one.
No, it's not the electric one, no. Andy, you have the closing word tonight. We're going to leave all the people that have joined us, and we've had over 400 as an average again tonight, so thank you for your fantastic support on the channel. I've never really got to ask you this, but do you normally give score predictions? Are you partial to a score prediction before a game?
Froze.
Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not.
No comment.
So no comment. Pepe, score?
It's got to go 2-0. I think 2-0 Pompey.
We'll take that. I think he has frozen. Either that or he's staying very, very still.
I've never heard of a score prediction before, so I don't know if we'll ever get one from him. But I've never heard one from him.
Okay, that was the $1 million question. He's definitely frozen. Did we get everyone else's score prediction?
Not mine.
I'll change my mind now.
Oh, go on, Reese.
I'm going 2-1 Pompey.
Gaz?
2-0 Pompey.
Lovely. Aaron?
If Thompson's playing, it's got 4-0 written all over it.
Lovely.
Ooh.
And I've just had word that his battery's died, so he's obviously not done a 4-0 Sunday live before, because we all know to keep yourselves plugged in, because it is rather draining on whatever you're using. Gents,
Andrew with the electric car.
This is true, yeah. No, this is very true. He does love a charge up. You're right. Thank you to everyone who's joined us across YouTube and Facebook this evening. Rob's enjoyed himself. Pompey Intimus, you sent an easy win Tuesday. 2-0 Pompey from Cornish Pompey. There we go, Aaron. Marcus is in agreement. 4-0 Pompey for you. See, Pepe, we're gutted, mate.
I don't. It's fine. I don't want to go to Fleetwood. I want to go. If it was a mile, if it was an hour away, I'll go. But it's Fleetwood. It's 4 hours away. I've already been up to Bolton twice 2 weeks ago in a week.
They do nice fish and chips, Pepe.
Yeah, it's not tempting. It's not tempting. It's cold. It'll be cold. It's too cold.
Leo said, how the hell have you pulled off Andy Moon onto the stream, and are the playoffs still possible? Well, I wanted to get a chance to say it to him personally, but because his battery's died, we won't be able to. But if by chance he watches back, I wanted to say a massive thank you for him for giving us an hour and a quarter of his time. We very much appreciate it. And it's nice to have two views from the press box rather than one for once. Yeah, good fun. And thanks.
He's never done a free lads, Tom.
For joining us. This is true. I don't know. We might see him pop up on Three Lads in the pub at some point soon as a consequence. So there we go. Lovely. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to the rest.
You done the poll, have you? Man of the match yesterday?
Gaz.
Oh, well done, Gaz.
Thank you. Good shout. 371. I'm glad Gaz is here because we would have just gone. I've got Happy Valley on the mind. That's the problem. 371 votes in total. That was I posted that about an hour before we started streaming. The results are in. I'm a little bit upset about this. Joe Morrell with 12% of the vote. Owen Deere with 13%. I would have thought there'd be a little bit higher proportions. Marlon Pack is still second with 27% of the vote. And leading the charge, Matt Macy. 48%. So that is it's a minority, but it's a big minority, and a safe hands, absolutely, and looking forward to seeing more of him. And I think that probably epitomizes the whole stream, doesn't it? Matt Macy as our man of the match is the man that deserves the plaudits, and we're absolutely buzzing that we've got him. And as we've always said, And what was the question I asked you, Mike? I just want to find it because I was quite pleased with the way I worded it. What was it? It goes to show how the opinion of opposition fans on former players shouldn't be taken as gospel. There we go.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. We'll see you very soon. Thank you to the panel as well. And as always, keep the faith. We'll see you. Oh, and I did say there was going to be a special guest. You're going to have to wait till Tuesday's video to see him, I'm afraid. But always leave your audience wanting more. That's the rules in the business. See you later, everybody. Thanks for watching. Play up Pompey. Bye for now.
Play up Pompey.
You are, boys.